The calm before the storm. The Zaltoran Dominion had long been regarded as the most formidable force in the galaxy. Their fleets were vast, their armies relentless, and their history, marked by the ruthless conquest of countless worlds, made them legends. It was a kingdom of iron and fire, where strength reigned supreme, and nothing stood in their way for centuries. So when the Zaltorans first set their sights on the Republic of Terra, the rest of the galaxy had little doubt about the outcome. The human race, though rapidly growing, was still considered a latecomer to the galactic stage, young, chaotic, and unpredictable. They had no ancient alliances to call upon, no fleets that could rival the Zaltoran juggernaut. They were seen as nothing more than an easy conquest, a prize to be claimed in the endless war between civilizations. And for a time, it seemed like the Zaltorans were right. The first wave of the invasion hit humanity's colonies like a tidal wave. Their warships descended from the void, their destructive energy weapons tearing through cities, rendering entire planets uninhabitable. The Republic of Terra and her colonies had fought back with everything they had, but the Dominion's tactics were overwhelming. Humanity was forced to fall back, scrambling for a defense, unsure how they could turn the tide. The Zaltoran Emperor, Exalrath, ordered no mercy. His goal was simple: total eradication of the human threat. He saw them as a nuisance, a fleeting spark in the vast darkness of space. After all, the Dominion had crushed countless enemies before. The humans would break as easily as the rest. But there was one thing Exalrath had miscalculated: humanity's spirit. In the face of extinction, the humans did not surrender. Instead, they adapted. They fought back with an intensity that neither the Dominion nor the rest of the galaxy had ever seen before. From the ashes of defeat, human ingenuity sparked a revolution in their war strategies. And in that moment, the Dominion learned an unforgettable lesson. The humans were not easy prey. They were the kind of enemy that would never break, and that realization would soon change the entire course of the war. Total war. The first strikes begin. The human war effort quickly transformed into something more than a struggle for survival. It became a statement, a declaration to the galaxy that humanity would not simply lie down and die. Within a matter of months, the human war machine, once underdeveloped and disorganized, was now a deadly force to be reckoned with. Their fleets were growing. Their technology had been upgraded beyond recognition, and their tactics were proving more effective with each engagement. The Dominion, realizing they were not facing the easy conquest they had anticipated, changed their approach. They switched from targeted strikes to full-scale planetary bombardment, seeking to break the will of the human resistance. But this only played into the humans' hands. Their resolve grew stronger, and as every human victory mounted, the Dominion's confidence faltered. As the war continued to escalate, the human Republic of Terra enacted a policy, the Three Strikes Doctrine. It was a policy that would forever change how the galaxy viewed humanity. Though officially detailed in their first contact communications, most other galactic powers dismissed it as an exaggerated bluff, something no sane species would follow through with. It was clear that the Republic was offering these details in the hopes of scaring off potential aggressors, a form of deterrence, nothing more. The doctrine was simple yet brutal. If an enemy used genocidal tactics, such as the Dominion had with their planetary bombardment and mass exterminations, humanity would respond with 3 strikes. Strike 1 was a warning, but it carried immense weight. When it was applied, the enemy would face a near-total military and technological blockade, leaving them unable to escalate further. The enemy would be confined to their homeworld, denied the ability to travel through space for generations. In essence, it was a form of neutralization, a political and military restraint meant to force the aggressor into compliance. But the Zaltorans did not heed this warning. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. Instead of pulling back, they doubled down on their campaign of destruction. They believed they could break the humans with sheer firepower. In their arrogance, they triggered Strike 2. The humans' response, a fury unleashed. As the Zoltarans continued their onslaught, humanity prepared for what would come next. Strike One had been applied, but the Dominion had ignored it, launching more attacks. The Zoltaran fleets pushed deeper into human space, attacking more colonies and burning planets to the ground. This, humanity realized, was the moment when there would be no turning back. The Republic of Terra's leaders were clear in their intent. Humanity would not simply fight for survival anymore. This was retribution. The full might of the Terran fleets was mobilized, not just in defense, but in an offensive operation designed to send a message to the galaxy. The humans deployed their secret weapon, an unspoken doctrine of war known only as total war. The term, long thought to be an artifact of ancient human history, was far more than just a concept. It was the brutal, unrelenting doctrine that allowed humanity to strip away the last vestiges of mercy in battle. Total war meant no restrictions on weapons, no limits on tactics. Everything was allowed if it led to victory. The Zoltarans were no longer fighting an enemy. They were fighting a force of nature. The first human fleets, equipped with advanced ships and weapons designed specifically for one purpose, to eliminate threats to human existence, launched an attack like nothing the Zoltarans had ever seen. Humanity's fleet moved like a hammer through the Dominion's defenses, a terrifying wave of precision strikes and overwhelming firepower. The Zoltarans tried to regroup, but it was already too late. Every maneuver they attempted to make was countered with terrifying effectiveness. Their massive warships, once thought to be invincible, were torn apart by the relentless assault of human weaponry. The planet-bound fleet was decimated in hours. Humanity did not just fight back. They fought with such fury that the Dominion began to question their own assumptions about the human race. The Zoltarans had created their own destruction by ignoring the warning of Strike One. They had awakened the giant. A fight for the future. As the war intensified, humanity's next move became even more critical. Strike Two was a terrifying response. It was not just a retaliation. It was an extermination tactic in itself, but not in the way most would think. Strike Two meant no longer just blocking the Zoltarans' access to space. Strike Two meant taking the very people responsible for this genocide, the entire Zoltaran population, and sending them into isolation. With no access to advanced technologies, no military forces to fight back, and no hope for expansion, the Zoltarans were forced to retreat to their homeworld. And even there, they were contained. Their ability to function as a galactic power was extinguished. The Zoltaran people were left to face the consequences of their actions, isolated and cut off from the stars. The human response to their enemy's failure to surrender was not just decisive, it was total. The Republic of Terra had proven that they would not allow the stars to be burned with the genocidal ambitions of any race. With the implementation of the Three Strikes Doctrine, humanity showed the galaxy just how far they would go to ensure their survival, and the survival of all those who would stand with them. The question now was whether the galaxy would listen. Would they see humanity's capacity for destruction as a threat, or would they understand that it was a defense mechanism forged in the fires of war, designed to protect all life across the stars? The Zoltaran Dominion had learned a brutal lesson, but the rest of the galaxy was watching. And the next lesson was already in motion. Strike One. The price of defiance. When the humans unleashed Strike One, it wasn't just a warning. It was a monumental shift in the balance of power within the galaxy. For centuries, the concept of total war had been a historical relic, an outdated, brutal strategy from the ancient past, seldom employed by any modern civilization. It was the ultimate show of force, meant to bring enemies to their knees and force them into surrender. And yet, here the humans were, employing it with terrifying efficiency. The Zoltarans had made the mistake of thinking their strength alone would bring humanity to its knees. They had miscalculated in their arrogance. Strike One wasn't simply a punishment. It was an act of profound restraint. It was a calculated move that demonstrated humanity's brutal efficiency without resorting to the complete eradication of their enemies. The Zoltorans were given a chance to reflect on their actions, but they had not realized the gravity of what was happening. The human resilience. In the months following the Zoltoran first wave, the human republic worked relentlessly to recover from the blows they had endured. Their population had taken heavy losses, their colonies devastated, but they had never stopped fighting. Every loss only seemed to fuel their determination. The war effort shifted into high gear, with every aspect of human society mobilized for one singular purpose: survival. It wasn't just a battle for control over space, it was a fight for existence. The Zoltorans had made the mistake of assuming that humanity would break under pressure, that their newfound spacefaring civilizations would fold under the weight of the Dominion's military might. Instead, humanity adapted, evolving their tactics and technology at a rate that astounded even their most seasoned military strategists. The Republic's engineers and scientists worked around the clock, developing new weapons, improving their ships' defenses, and learning how to fight an enemy that refused to play by the same rules. The humans had no choice but to embrace the full extent of total war, a doctrine that had been held in reserve for a moment just like this. Humanity's war machine, now fully awakened, would not hesitate to employ every weapon at its disposal. The Zoltorans' first strategic blunder had been underestimating humanity's resilience. They thought their superior military tactics and firepower would be enough to break the humans. They were wrong. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, nor its military. It was its unyielding will. A war of adaptation. As the war progressed, humanity quickly adapted to the brutal tactics employed by the Zoltorans. Each battle brought new insights into the enemy's strengths and weaknesses. Rather than fight in conventional ways, the humans used guerrilla tactics, electronic warfare, and unexpected strikes that threw the Zoltorans into disarray. Entire fleets that once seemed invincible were decimated by human ingenuity. Zoltoran warships, known for their devastating firepower and large fleets, were met with an unexpected kind of aggression: quick strikes, ambushes, and precision tactics that took advantage of the Zoltorans' overconfidence. The human military had honed a perfect balance between offensive and defensive maneuvers. They understood the importance of adaptability, constantly adjusting to each new scenario as it came, and they used their enemies' own strategies against them. The Zoltorans, with their rigid military doctrine, struggled to counter this. Each time they thought they had the upper hand, humanity adjusted. They didn't just fight back. They evolved in real time. They learned. They adapted. They grew stronger. Strike One unfolds, a galactic shockwave. When Strike One was officially initiated, the full scale of humanity's power was made known to the Zoltorans. The policy was clear and terrifying. If you continue your attempts at extermination, your people will be confined. The Republic issued a galactic warning. The remaining Zoltoran forces were instructed to retreat from human territories, and the surviving Zoltoran population was rounded up. It was not a total extermination, but a complete containment of their species, a policy meant to isolate the Zoltorans and deny them the means to wage war for a generation. Humanity imposed a blockade on the Zoltorans' homeworld. The Zoltoran people were no longer allowed to travel to the stars. Their military infrastructure was dismantled, leaving them with only their cradle world to call home. For the first time in their history, the Zoltorans were reduced to nothing more than a dormant species, isolated from the vast expanse of the galaxy they had once dominated. Their future was uncertain, a fate designed to ensure that their aggressive ambitions would be stifled before they could take root again. Humanity's restraint was the most powerful weapon of all, but it was a weapon they had only just begun to wield. The sufferings of the Zoltoran people. While humanity's war efforts against the Zoltorans continued with relentless vigor, the Zoltoran people found themselves in a grim reality. Stripped of their fleets, isolated from the stars, and imprisoned on their homeworld, they were forced to endure the consequences of their actions. The vast technological infrastructure they had once relied upon was now obsolete, their cities abandoned to decay as their people were left with nothing but the remnants of their lost empire. Humanity had not simply crushed their military. They had delivered a psychological blow, forcing the Zoltorans to face the sheer weight of their arrogance. The once feared Zoltoran warriors, who had struck terror into the hearts of countless species, were now prisoners of their own hubris. The message was clear: violence, unchecked, would always have consequences. The Zoltorans' choice: subjugation or extinction. But even as the Zoltorans reeled from their defeat, their pride could not let go. Some factions, still refusing to accept the scale of their loss, continued to hold on to the belief that they could somehow turn the tide, that they could rise from the ashes like they had before. Yet the crushing weight of the Republic's strike would not allow them the luxury of such thoughts. Humanity had already warned them. There was no turning back. Strike One was the last chance the Zoltorans would have to learn. They could either adapt or face complete extinction. It was a choice they were forced to make, and one they knew would define the future of their species. If they refused to learn, the full consequences of Strike Two would be unimaginable. Humanity's intervention was a harsh, merciless lesson. Underestimate us at your peril. Those who sought to erase us would find themselves facing consequences far worse than they could ever imagine. The Zoltorans were not the first species to think they could wipe out humanity, nor would they be the last. But they would serve as a reminder, a warning to the rest of the galaxy. If you threaten humanity's survival, you will meet the wrath of the giant. And the giant was just warming up. The calm before the second strike. With the Zoltoran Dominion now caged in their homeworld, humanity shifted its focus. It was not a time for celebration. It was a time for preparation. Strike One had been effective, but it was only the beginning. The rest of the galaxy had watched closely, witnessing what could happen when a species ignored humanity's warning. What they didn't know was that Strike Two was already being calculated. The lessons humanity had learned during their war were now being applied to every corner of their territories. The Republic of Terra knew that they would not only need to prepare for the possibility of future aggression, but also need to show the galaxy what true power meant. They had proven they could defend themselves. They had proven they could retaliate. And now, they would prove that humanity was not just about to survive, but to dominate. The storm before the lightning. In the days following the application of Strike One, the Republic of Terra was no longer the same. The galactic community had watched, stunned and silent, as humanity enacted the first stage of its brutal doctrine. Some believed it was a fluke, a one-time show of force that would fade with time. Others feared it as a harbinger, a terrifying glimpse into the full scope of humanity's capabilities. The Zoltorans had learned their lesson, but the galaxy wasn't so sure. Humanity's actions had shaken the very foundations of interstellar diplomacy. What was once considered an unspoken rule of galactic warfare, restraint, had been shattered. The Republic of Terra had proven that it was willing to abandon all notions of conventional warfare to protect its people, and they had done so with ruthless efficiency. Yet, despite their restraint in not fully destroying the Zoltoran race, the message had been made clear: humanity would never be weak again. But while the galaxy held its breath, humanity prepared for the next phase. The rise of the human war machine. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. The Republic of Terra had transformed into a war machine unlike anything seen before. Their fleets, once filled with a hodgepodge of older and underdeveloped vessels, had been upgraded to levels that made even the most powerful military factions nervous. New technologies were rapidly rolled out, utilizing cutting-edge weapons that not only increased their firepower, but allowed them to adapt to any situation on the fly. Every corner of human space was now a fortress. Every colony, every space station, every outpost had been reinforced and re-engineered. The human military, once small and disorganized, had become a synchronized force with a single purpose: to defend humanity and eliminate any existential threat to their way of life. The lessons learned during the war with the Zoltorans had been invaluable. The Republic of Terra had not only survived their first encounter with extinction, but had emerged stronger and more determined. There would be no hesitation in the future. The Three Strikes Doctrine had proven to be a devastatingly effective strategy. Now, humanity wasn't just preparing for the next war. They were preparing to send a message to the rest of the galaxy. Strike 1 had been a warning. Strike 2 was coming. And no one, no species, could escape it. The Zaltoran surrender, a bitter victory. On the Zaltoran homeworld, the streets were eerily quiet. The once proud empire that had swept across the galaxy now stood paralyzed. The Zaltorans had been given a chance. Chance to regroup, to rebuild, and perhaps to learn from their failure. But they had failed to understand the full scope of humanity's will. Humanity had given them a warning, and they had refused to take it seriously. Now the Zaltorans were isolated, confined to their cradle world, unable to reach the stars. For the first time in Zaltoran history, their people found themselves humbled. The military might they once wielded with pride was gone. Their fleets had been crushed, their colonies eradicated, and their warlords reduced to broken remnants. The once feared dominion was now nothing more than a prisoner in their own system. It wasn't just the loss of their empire that hurt. It was the loss of their identity. The Zaltorans were warriors at their core, defined by conquest and the relentless pursuit of power. And now, all that had been stripped away by a single species, humanity. The Zaltorans had thought their victory was certain. They believed their strength would crush the humans. But the humans had fought with something far more potent than mere firepower. They had fought with determination, with resilience, and above all, with a sense of unity that could not be broken. The galaxy holds its breath. The rest of the galaxy watched in silence as the Zaltorans retreated to their homeworld. The Republic of Terra's actions had been decisive, but also deliberate. There had been no genocide, no wanton destruction. Humanity had chosen restraint, a concept that was almost unthinkable to many other galactic powers. But it was clear that humanity was not a species that could be easily dismissed. As the Zaltoran Dominion licked its wounds and the galaxy's other factions reassessed their position, one question lingered in the air. What would humanity do next? The Zaltorans had been given a choice: surrender or face total extinction. They had chosen surrender. But what if another species, one not as quick to submit, decided to challenge humanity's authority? What if another power, emboldened by the Dominion's failure, thought they could rise against the Republic? The Three Strikes Doctrine was not just a set of rules. It was a philosophy, a belief in the absolute protection of humanity's future at any cost. But it was also a dangerous precedent. What would happen when the doctrine was put into full effect? What would the galaxy look like when humanity truly unleashed its wrath? The bunker talks. A different path. Not everyone within the human republic agreed with the path they had taken. There were whispers in the corridors of power, voices that spoke of regret. Many felt that humanity's actions were justified, but there were those who feared the consequences. Would the galaxy see them as monsters? Would they become the very thing they had sought to destroy? In the darkened halls of the human government, heated discussions took place. There were those who believed humanity had done the right thing in making its stand. They had been attacked, and they had defended themselves with everything they had. The Zaltorans had not left them a choice. But there were others who saw a different path, one that called for caution, for diplomacy, for a future where humanity did not become just another empire of fear and war. The bunker talks, so named for the secretive meetings held in secure locations, were the last chance for the human leadership to come to an agreement on how the next phase of the Three Strikes Doctrine would play out. Would humanity continue down the path of destruction, or would they find a way to re-enter the galactic community as leaders, not conquerors? The discussions were long and heated. There were voices of dissent and cries for more aggressive action. But one thing was clear: the Republic of Terra was now a power, not just a survivor. And with that power came responsibility. A galaxy divided. Outside of Terra, the rest of the galaxy was in a state of flux. Some species began to see humanity as a growing threat to their own power, while others cautiously reached out in the hope of forming alliances. The Republic of Terra had demonstrated their might. And the galaxy knew it. The great powers of the galaxy, those who had once ignored humanity or viewed them as a minor player, were now paying attention. Some sought to ally with humanity, recognizing that the Republic had the strength and will to maintain order in a galaxy it had long been filled with chaos. Others, however, feared the human doctrine, seeing it as a dangerous precedent that could threaten the very stability of the galaxy. The Three Strikes doctrine had sparked a new era, one where the old rules of war no longer applied. And in that era, the future was uncertain. Humanity had proven they would not let themselves be wiped out. But what would happen next? Would they continue to strike down their enemies, or would they seek a different path, a path of diplomacy, of rebuilding the alliances that had once held the galaxy together? The Rising Storm. As the Republic of Terra stood at the precipice of a new age, the rest of the galaxy waited. The first strike had been effective. The Zoltaran Dominion had learned their lesson. But would Strike 2 follow? And if it did, would the galaxy be ready for the storm humanity was about to unleash? Humanity had proven one thing in their struggle with the Zoltarans: they would not be broken. And whatever came next, they would not back down. The question was no longer whether humanity would survive. It was whether the rest of the galaxy could keep up with the pace humanity was setting. For now, humanity was preparing for whatever came next, holding their breath for what Strike 2 might bring. But one thing was certain: they would never be underestimated again. The giant had awoken, and the galaxy was about to learn that it was not only capable of surviving, it was capable of changing the universe itself. And that was only the beginning.